Why? Because it happens very rarely. So how it happened, most of them want to know about it. I know you gave your attempt again in 2021, but the first attempt is very big achievement. He is in IRS, Indian Revenue Service Income Tax. So please share your, how you cracked your first attempt.
Thank you, sir. Hi, everyone. Hi. Like sir said, my first attempt was 2020, and I was lucky enough to get a rank in that attempt. I think few things that really worked or came in handy in my first attempt were that the topmost thing was that I ensured I had the least number of resources possible for every subject. I ensured I did not go for more than one book at all for any subject. This is because I know we have very limited time in hand, and I know it is possible for us to take up too much, and in the end we'll have no time to revise all of it in the later on. So that's why for every subject I ensured I only took one source. And I know there is a lot of dilemma in terms of choosing resources, because every time you see a question that is not from your source in the prelims question paper, you begin to question, are my sources good enough, or do I need to look at other textbooks? But trust your own sources, have confidence in your own sources. So first thing is definitely keeping the least number of resources possible. Second was this one thing that my father always used to tell me, which is that you work hard for this 2 or 3 years, put your heart and soul into it, and for the rest 40 years of your life, you will be happy and sorted. So I tried my best to implement this thing, although of course there are deviations and distractions in between. So I think this sort of philosophy that my father has drilled into me, that has come in handy again. So therefore my strategy to ensure I am sort of blinkered, that is, I am not taking too much up that I can't do, or like if I am actually going on the right path, I follow this path of constant evaluation. You are evaluating yourself at every step. By which I mean, say for prelims, you did a particular subject, like say geography. I would take a small sectional test, say 50 questions ka sectional test, and then see, okay, am I actually going in the right direction, or do I need to improve more? Same happened with mains too. Like, when I'm writing essays, I had gotten them evaluated from my seniors or like my other friends who are preparing for UPSC. I'm sure all of you also have the luxury of friends who are preparing for UPSC along with you. So this constant evaluation, and why I emphasize on this is, a lot of times it's easy for us to get carried away and we end up getting neck deep into something, and then later on we realize, oh, maybe this is not working for me. But then the time is too late again for you to go back and start afresh. Right? So wherever possible, whenever possible, evaluate yourself at every step. So I think these are sort of the 4 things that really came in handy. But if I were to boil it down to one important thing that sort of did all the difference, that do or die thing, it was note making. I'm a person who cannot sort of revise or cannot get something into my head without making proper notes. And by proper notes, I mean something which you can revise, which you can always fall back on. Because I have seen myself, and I've did this mistake too in the beginning, and I've seen a lot of my friends too, is when you make notes, you sort of end up paraphrasing and reproducing the entire material again in your notes, and that's not going to help. It's going to add too much stress towards, closer to the exam. So I think one very key thing that really helped me was this making very concise, precise notes for almost every subject that's out there, including for polity. For a book like Lakshmikant, which is seemingly like, already in a notes format, I still ended up making short notes for that too. So try wherever possible to make short and concise notes, which you can understand in your own language, which has all these, short codes, cheat codes and all of this, which will help you recall stuff, Because if you are unable to recall it in the exam, it's as good as not studying it at all. There's no point if you revise it 100 times from the actual book and you're unable to recall it in the actual exam. So it's as good as just not having read that, right? So the recalling part is very important, and for that you need to have this precise notes. So I think these are, few factors that sort of help me get through. And I also consider there was a huge factor of luck because I was not confident that I'll get through at all in this attempt. So that's definitely there. And what I sort of planned for is, just to show you guys a glimpse of what my notes were for both prelims and by the way, how many of you are giving 2022 prelims? All of you. Achha. And you guys have given 2021 attempt. Achha. So one problem that me and like a lot of other people also did face, particularly with 2020 and 21 paper Cs, they're becoming extremely unpredictable, you know. You do all the standard sources, but still a lot of people are failing to crack the exam. And there's one sort of phrase that one of my friends put very succinctly, which is 3 C's. She said there are 3 C's that are helping us crack prelims. And it's calmness, confidence, and clarity, you know. These are 3 things that she said were really helping in the exam. And I truly actually believe that worked. Because truth be told, this attempt, I wasn't planning to give this attempt because I was already burnt out after the last attempt. And I wasn't planning to do so. So I thought I'd go to the foundation course at Labasna and then take the 2022 attempt. But my parents were stubborn. They sort of prodded me into, you know, taking this attempt. So I barely studied for like 2 to 3 days and sort of just ended up giving the examination. But I think that common sense thing, which I lacked in the first attempt, my revision and my studying helped. In the second attempt, I had no time to revise. I did not do any Vision Current Affair magazines, anything at all, because my interview was just over. So I think it was a common sense that made up for lack of revisions or, you know, lack of, you know, doing a lot of tests. I couldn't solve any tests either. So yeah, I thought I'd probably give you guys a quick run of, you know, how I did things, and feel very, very free to interrupt me at any point in time to just ask, you know, any questions, okay? These are the 3 things that my friends said are the 3 C's that really help you, and this also involved clarity. Now there are 3 different things that I did for each of them, and that really came in handy this time. So the first thing I would sort of start with is how to have this confidence, you know, like when you enter the exam hall, because I think 50% of the difference comes from your mindset when you do the exam. 50% of the battle is done before the exam itself. The rest 50 is done in the exam hall. And again, in that, a lot of it comes from your confidence. And I had seniors of mine who were scoring extremely well in their mock tests, you know, upwards of 120 and 130. But they still ended up scoring very low in prelims and all of that, simply because the moment you sit in the exam hall, it's a whole different ball game altogether, you know. It's very nervous, you know, you get all tensed up and all, so your brain stops functioning the way it does otherwise. So the best way you do it is you simulate those conditions as well as possible at home. So for my first attempt in 2020, what I did was I took around 10 to 12 mocks, right, up till prelims, at the same time every day from 9:30 to 11:30. I would take bath and sit like I would do on the actual day, you know. Sit from 9:30 to 11:30, take the prelims, including with a mask on, because that was the first prelims in COVID. You wouldn't want to have this distraction of mask. And I would sit on a stool, because you never know, some centers are terrible and you would have a terrible chair. So I would sit on a stool, turn the fan off, put your mask on, and, you know, take the test for 10 to 12 days. So on the D-day when you go to the exam hall, your mind will be like, "Arey yaar, I've been doing this for the last 12 days. What's so new about it? It's just another day." And that makes a huge difference, you know, because it is from this confidence that stems the other 2, calmness and confidence, that makes a huge difference in how you score. So I would strongly recommend, a lot of people do this, they keep on revising and revising and revising until the prelims, and they don't take enough tests. Even when they do, you know, they do 1 hour simulation and then leave the 1 hour for later. They wouldn't bubble the OMR, they would just mark on the question paper. No, it's a huge game, and the huge, you know, biggest of filtering happens in prelims level. Around 10 lakh people apply and only 10,000 come through. So that's the most difficult part. So you need to be best prepared for it. You need to respect this exam, otherwise it will throw you out. So simulate, you know, as much as possible before your prelims. Take your mock seriously. That's the best advice I can give to all of you from my limited knowledge. And yeah, second thing is this confidence. The confidence part. And again, I also draw this from one of my seniors' experiences. Again, he used to score a lot in his mock tests, but in the actual exam, he would end up marking a lot of negative things in the last, you know, 20 minutes. You feel like, you know, you would think you want to say mark 90 questions, but when you go there, you end up only writing 80 questions, and your mind will be like, no, I need to mark those 90 questions, so you will end up just marking the other 10, and this 10 will just throw you out of the exam, you know, because it's just a matter of 0.6 or 0.3, and your entire, you know, like, life would go on a different track after that. So you need to be very good at risk taking in the examination, and for that there is one method which my friends and I have sort of put together, and it has really come in handy for the three of us. Like, three of us managed to clear prelims both the times, last time and this time. So I'm sure like you guys can put in an iota of trust in this method. I'll come to this method just in a bit. And then the last thing is a common sense too. I think increasingly UPSC is sort of outsmarting all the coaching institutes or any materials that are out there. So unless you have common sense, you cannot sort of get through the questions. You cannot prepare and go. What we do is we see some question, say some obscure question from history, and then you end up starting a new book because I don't know this question and how do I do it. So I think it's not possible for you to study every book that's out there and go. So I think common sense is the thing that really comes in handy again. So this common sense thing and risk taking thing I'll show you so this is just a mock paper that I solved last year. So this confidence comes from taking appropriate risk, okay. And what we did was we categorized every question into 4 categories, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So first category is when you know sent answer, like you know directly that's the correct answer. And then category 2 is you eliminated 2 options. See, I have eliminated A and D, but I need to pick between B and C. So that's category 2 question. Then category 3 is a question where I sort of have to pick between 3 options. I eliminated 1 option. And category 4 is where I have absolutely no clue as to what the question is. So immediately after getting the question paper, we would categorize the entire paper into these 4 things. And then just start marking the category 1 questions because you know they are 100% correct, in the OMR sheet. Then comes the category 2 questions, then comes category 3, and then see depending on the paper how many questions you would want to attempt. Don't have this figure in your head, okay, I need to attempt 90 questions, because sometimes paper can be really difficult and attempting 90 questions can actually put you out of the exam. So after category 3, you don't go for category 4 unless it's a do or die situation, okay, because a lot of people end up taking this unnecessary risk because these category 4 questions are more likely to go wrong than they are to go correct because you have no clue of these questions. So do it that way, and then that actually came in really handy in both my attempts in terms of taking the appropriate risk. So this is that thing. And then this was last year's question paper, and I thought I'll sort of show 2 to 3 questions as to how common sense worked last year. So this is one question that I thought would be a good example. So in all the history books that we do, Spectrum or like Bipin Chandra and all, you don't really find these things. And some people might wonder, oh, do we need to do more history books to sort of get this question correct? But then this question can be easily solved through common sense, because see, it asks 3 names: Shahnawaz Khan, Prem Kumar Sehgal and Gurbaksh Singh Dhillon. And if anyone who has studied history, modern history properly, you can clearly eliminate these things: leaders of Swadeshi and boycott movement. It's unlikely that you don't know any of these 3 names if you've already read Swadeshi movement and boycott movement. They are very famous movements. Same interim government, both Spectrum and Lakshmikant have the list of all the ministers of the interim government. I'm sure all of you have by-hearted that. So these 3 names are not there in that. And then members of the drafting committee. Again, these names are there in Lakshmikant and also are there in Spectrum. So by common sense, you can sort of eliminate these 3 things. You need not know for 100% that these are actually officers of Indian Army, but you need to trust yourselves if you have actually read polity and Spectrum properly, and you can eliminate these 3 options. And that's how this question can be made correct. So again, this is another question with reference to Chauset Yogini temple situated near Morena. Consider the following statements. Now people might wonder, this is a very obscure question that no one really knows, or it's not asked in the questions. But all of us know that the proposal to make the Central Vista project is on the cards, right? The parliament is going to be remade, and the design for it is inspired by this Chauset Yogini temple, the design of the parliament. So it was there in the newspapers when it came, and herein where the newspaper reading actually comes in handy. So when you actually read the Chauset Yogini temple, and parliament is not in a circular shape per se, it's this way, right? How it's sort of in an oval shape. So you can clearly eliminate it's the only circular temple built in India. Okay. And the moment you eliminate 2, see, you are down to 1 option, option C. So it's as simple as that. You don't need to know whether, and also 3 is wrong. I mean, if you know a bit more, it's about tantric cult, so it's not Vaishnava cult. But you didn't even know it that deeply, because if you can eliminate option 2, you can get the correct answer already. Same again, this question also, water harvesting thing. It was there in news everywhere, Dholavira and then UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it can be easily done. You need to be a bit curious to check what are the important things with each important place, and then you will be able to do this question easily. Yeah, again, this R2 code of practices constitutes a tool available for promoting the adoption of. This is something you don't really find in any of the books or anything. But then again, common sense. See, if it's something to do with this option, Ramsar Convention, I'm sure all of us have done Ramsar Convention, so it's highly unlikely we haven't heard of something if it were actually true. So this option can be eliminated. Same happens with these two things too. Environmental impact assessment, there is a new thing which has come in, Environmental Impact Assessment 2020, new rules have come in. So if you have read that, you would know that this thing is nowhere given in that environmental impact assessment things. So likewise, you can eliminate these 3 options using common sense and get there. I will just show one last question and then quickly move on to other stuff. Yeah, so again, this is how is permaculture farming different from conventional chemical farming. Now you might begin to wonder that probably you need to do the whole of Shankara AS to probably answer this question. And a lot of us actually end up doing that. But this question can be easily solved through, your common sense understanding. Now, if you read through the options, option 3, it says conventional chemical farming is easily possible in semi-arid regions, but permaculture farming is not easily possible in such regions. Now, if you actually apply your common sense, anything better or like a new culture is coming that is actually aims to provide this environmental sustainability, right? So it's highly unlikely that a new or evolving technology like permaculture is not cultivable in a semi-arid region. And also conventional chemical farming, one of the biggest problems is that they use heavy water for the fertilizer to go in, be it with the sugar cane or with the rice and paddy, So you clearly can eliminate this option that conventional chemical farming is easily possible in semi-arid regions. It's not. That's why arid regions are actually backward. So this option, and you eliminate this option, see 3 and 3 are gone, and then you can clearly see like 1 and 2 are correct, and then you will get it option B. So these are the few ways that I thought common sense helped in this paper. And then now quickly I'll just show you guys the notes, and I'll so these are like the short notes that I made for a quick revision, before prelims. And this is like that one-time investment, it really comes in handy for your every prelims, should you need it, and it's highly likely we might need it. So you might wonder, this thing is actually there in Spectrum, in the end the list is there. But then it's not so convenient for reading, and you can always add extra information sideways, So this is all the organizations and associations in modern history that I made. I had about like 105, 110 of them. When in mocks also, when you find a new institution, you would just come and add it here. So yeah, this is modern history, and then see I put all the wars at one place so that I can quickly revise all the wars instead of going through the bulky 110 pages in Spectrum. Yeah, and the governors and viceroys, I sort of by-hearted the entire years, like, start from Roger Drake until the end, Lord Mountbatten. So I sort of evolved a pattern as to, okay, how many years were the gap in between, with each viceroy. Here there is, say, a pattern of 4 years gap 4 times. It's easy, you can evolve your own patterns. And then it's an alternating pattern of 6, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 3 times. So this way I ensured like from the beginning till the end I could remember. So then when questions come like, blah, 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 policy is taken under the rule of some viceroy. You can, or like, as simple as Satyagraha movement happened in the, tenureship of particular viceroy. Which year Satyagraha has happened, or like Swaraj movement has happened. And you can clearly eliminate because which year the viceroy has come in. And these will really help you eliminate options and, score well in modern history, which is a low-hanging fruit. Yeah, and then these are the important Congress sessions. Yeah, and these are the legislations that are very important. And I thought, and these are all over the place in both polity and in Lakshmikant and Spectrum. So for you to actually get a complex picture of it, and also how things are evolving from each act to the next act with each 20 years of gap, I would highly recommend you make, short and simple notes like this, because it helps. Like, you can underline and see how things kept on evolving from 1 year to, 1813 and then 1833 and then 1853. You can see this. And I also extensively use maps for a lot of subjects: history, geography, environment, everything, because maps are a great tool to put a lot of information at one place and then revise. So I mapped all the Ashokan edicts here. Yeah, and I sort of wrote down everything on one map. So instead of again going back and looking at everything, you can just sort of come here, and then I also use different colors to sort of make it fun while revising. And it really helps you to remember, because we have good visual memory. The more you look at it, you sort of remember this image in your head, and you will be able to recall it in the exam instead of reading a whole bunch of information that way. Yeah, and then these are the Harappan sites. I drew the map and I marked everything here. And while you do it, you sort of get a bit curious as to what thing is what. And like that's how I sort of kept on I just googled up, which place is famous for which. And Dolavira clearly was famous for water harvesting, and I could solve the question because of that. This I did last year in my 20 attempt. Same, I marked all the rivers of India in this thing, and it took about 3 to 4 hours, but it's really worth it, because there was a question this year as to, they gave 4 rivers and asked which of the 2 rivers originate in Eastern Ghats. And I remember this entire image in my head. So 2 options were Rishikulya and Vamsadhara, and I could clearly mark this thing, And yeah, and it also helps you, in terms of tributaries, everything. And after this, there are also other maps about mountains and glaciers that I also mapped. So you sort of juxtapose both the things in your head. So you can always sort of recall which glacier has which river at its source, or which river is originating from which mountain or which glacier. And it really helps you to solve questions really easily. See, and then I also made notes of the entire rivers. This also, it looks like a lot, but it doesn't take much time, trust me. So each river, where is it originating, where is it merging in the sea, what are the tributaries, and important, like, locations where it's passing through. This is a good one-time investment, and you can always sort of use it. Yeah, same, I did the same with forests of India. And there's always a question as to, some region is falling in some dry deciduous forest, which national park is in which region and all. And I also marked all the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, everything on the map. So you can sort of think, okay, this national park is in this area in the map, and here it's in a particular color. So you can sort of juxtapose both the things and decide which one it is. See, these are all the mountain passes and mountain ranges that I said before, You could see all of them. And then the more you look at it and also you juxtapose a reverse thing, you are easily able to eliminate options and address them. Yeah, these are, where all the important latitudes and longitudes are passing across the, yeah, and then you sort of make a list of it, and you have very good knowledge. Particularly, say there might be a question in geography that a particular crop is growing in, Brazil is the largest exporter of some crop, apple, let's say. And Brazil is, sort of a tropical country, and it's highly unlikely apple grows so much in a tropical country. So you can sort of mix and match this information and, push your common sense forward and answer the questions. See, I just wrote down the list of all the tropic of, which latitude is passing through which countries and direction from that way to this way. Same, I marked all the oceans and seas of the world in this, just one map. You can see all the Mediterranean Sea, everything is just marked. It's self-explanatory. Yeah, and I use different colors to sort of remember. This is all Pacific Ocean, that is all Indian Ocean, this is all Arctic Ocean and all of that. Yeah, these are all the climatic regions of the world. So these might look like they take a lot of time, but trust me, they don't. They really come in handy. Yeah, and the entire soil regions of India. Yeah, basically again the soil qualities and all. These are the short notes that I quickly revised in the end, and that really came in handy. Now this section is about how to read current affairs. A lot of us read current affairs, but end up not really doing well in that particular section. So what we used to do is, we used to make questions out of each page on the side next to this thing. See, I made 2 questions here. Article 131 cases only between center and state and not states and states. So I set traps for myself here. So second time when I come back for revision, I answer these questions first, and if I'm able to answer these questions, I just move on to the next page. If I'm not, again I'm getting back to this material. That saves you a lot of time in terms of revision, and also because you are setting yourself into traps here, you are likely to avoid them in the actual exam because now you are used to it, right? So I used to see questions like this for every page, just one or two, important stuff of questions here. See, these are all, board accord removed NDFB from UAPS Schedule 1. This was one of the happening issues then. And you're setting up these traps here, it's really easy for you to avoid them later. Yeah, and also there was a question on Nubra Valley. I think it was in last year or the 2020 attempt. Again, you need to be slightly curious about what's happening around and just take a look at them. That was a time when Galvan clashes were happening. So I sort of just looked up and mapped the entire thing here. So the question I think was Nubra Valley is at the foot of which glacier? It was Siachen. See, you can clearly see her. So be slightly curious about what's happening around. You have access to internet and Google, so you can just always Google up and be slightly curious about things. Then also with all the plethora of schemes that the current government is bringing in, I also made notes of the schemes, just the important stuff. I used to keep this next to me while doing current affairs. And I would just put this thing, which ministry, whether it's a central sector scheme or centrally sponsored scheme, and 2 to 3 important stuff, whether there is one nodal agency or something. And again, this list really came in handy for both prelims and mains and also the interview. You can always resort to them while answering your mains too. These are all the schemes. Same, I made list of all the species too that are there in general in the news and also that are actually there in like the list when you open a website of the ministry. So it's easy, I just put like 2 lines of it, where it is and what are the important things about it that I need to remember, because there are just way too many species and it becomes really difficult to remember. And this I just used to keep next to me while doing current affairs material and just used to write those 2 to 3 things there and move on. Same, national parks. Now, and this is a very easy and fun task because I used to challenge myself. I used to set 4 minutes time and map all the 104 national parks on the map. And that comes in handy because now you've done this, you've also done the rivers, you've also done the climatic zones on the map. And you can easily answer whether a river is passing through which national park or whether a national park falls in a tropical zone or an alpine zone and all. It becomes really handy. Same I did with tiger reserves, biosphere reserves and everything. And I also used to keep, the number of parks or number of wildlife reserves that are there. So at times there might be a question as Punjab has no tiger reserve. Now that I have crossed it out, I can quickly visualize this thing in my head and say, okay, Punjab does not actually have. Instead of running my mind through the entire list of 50 tiger reserves and then thinking, is this park actually in Punjab or is it in some other state? So this is what I did. Same, I also just marked the important latitude and longitudes of India and marked all the capitals here. Because I think 2019 there was a question which said which of the following cities is closest to the Tropic of Cancer. And now while you do it, you can see it's Ranchi and, or they might ask you to arrange these from west to east or east to west. So this barely takes 10 minutes to even do. Yes, these are all the mountain passes that I marked. If you're not analyzing your mock test, it's as important as just not taking the test, So I used to spend at least 4 to 5 hours after each mock test and make notes out of it. Because you cannot be repeating the same mistake again in the actual exam. So I used to take an A3 sheet. I'm sure all of you guys know it has 4 sides, A3 sheet. And I used to make notes of all the 100 questions in just that A3 sheet. And whenever I'm starting my revision cycles, the first go-to ones are these short notes. And these are extremely helpful, Even for this attempt, I sort of took a look at these notes of last year for like an hour. So just the crux of the information, because one of the best things that coaching institutes give us are the answer solutions that are there for prelims mock tests. They are a huge repository of information. So I just used to make this, see. This is all for like one test, just these 3 pages. And also I would use to keep an Excel sheet like this and to monitor my performance. So this was one of the beginning ones, these are all the sectional tests that I took. So I used to, so you can always set the cutoff for your particular category looking at last 3-4 years cutoffs and do an average of it and put it there. And I used to calculate the scores and see which areas I am doing okay, which areas I am not doing okay. And this is why what I said in the beginning, you need to constantly evaluate yourself, While doing this, I know, okay, I probably did decent in environment and polity. since I have limited time now, instead of prioritizing environment and polity, I would rather look at some other subject which I didn't do well, which is science and technology. So, and this is an easy thing, you just put in the formula, you just put in the figures and it calculates it for yourself. So my goal was to just, make it as much green as possible. And I also used to have a tally of how many questions I attempted. So one of my friends did something called Operation 10,000. So she did like 100 mock tests worth of questions. I did not have the luxury because I was running really late on my optional. So I did around 3,700 questions. So I used to like calculate here. And yeah, and this last one is how I used to sort of keep track of my daily routine. This used to be my bedtime activity. So yeah, this is for the February month. My goal used to be like, fill as many boxes before I sleep, these little things that sort of keep you pushed. So that's, whether I have read the newspaper on that particular day, whether I made notes of newspaper, whether I woke up on time, whether I spent less than 2 hours on phone, whether I exercised, whether I do journaling like before sleeping, sort of go over my entire day. And how much time I spent on my optional, how much time I spent on studying. This is exclusive of the newspaper thing. I don't put newspaper thing in it. Yeah, so that's how I used to do. See, this is for the month of March. Yeah, I think that's mostly all I have. So, in case you guys have any questions, see that only. So, like you said, when you do the risk categorization thing that I said, if it's an area which I'm not really comfortable in, say science and technology, it will mostly get pushed to 3 and 4. And if it's a case you still need to do it, the common sense thing that I told you, the permaculture thing, I had no clue of permaculture before I wrote the exam, but I ended up getting it correct. And credit goes to previous IPS officer, he's Archit Chandak from 2018 batch. So he has sort of put up all of these things on his channel, on his Quora channel, how to eliminate these techniques. And I think that actually, and like, one other thing that I also want to tell you guys is our subconscious mind is much more powerful than we allow ourselves to think. All of us have done science and tech in school, all of us have done environment in school. So if you are able to recall, koncham dots connect cheskoni, you can do it. In fact, I was quite surprised. I got more science and technology and environment questions correct this time than polity and economy. And science and technology and environment are not my strong areas at all. So I think this also takes a bit of practice, this common sense thing, you start doing these questions and then you get it. But also remember, it's not a game of 200 on 200. You just need to clear the cutoff, right? That's very important. And it's not like where your merit thing counts, such how much above cutoff you've scored. It doesn't matter if you cleared 98 or if you cleared at 150, it doesn't matter. So put in the least amount of effort possible and then do all this risk categorization and all of thing and just hit at the sweet spot, okay? Yeah, so in my first attempt, I didn't really proper mock test. I think I solved like around 15 of them before the actual exam. Like I said, the simulation mode, And also very important thing is you bubble the OMR every time you do the mock test. Because one of my friends, it might sound very trivial, but what happened with one of my friends is, he's been through JEE and also he's like, what is there in OMR? So obviously bubble kar hi lenge. So he was like that. So he never really bubbled OMR, but in the actual exam, which was his first prelims and which was mine too, it's a different level of tension. You don't feel it unless you sit in the exam hall. So his hand started shivering and he couldn't bubble the OMR sheet. He marked about 85 questions in the question paper, but he could only mark 65 in the OMR sheet. Now that prelims was gone, that meant his entire trajectory has gone a different direction. He couldn't clear the second prelims also because something else came in between. So if he had only took into mind that slightest thing of, marking on OMR, practice it once in advance, his entire life would have taken a different trajectory now. So give it the respect it deserves, take the, this thing properly. Marks, I think properly I took 15 to 16 marks, but in total I did around 3,700 questions, I guess, because Insights has something called 90 days prelims plan, which they released before prelims, which has 25 questions of paper 1 and 5 questions of CSAT. So I used to do that in the beginning, like, start slow and then build up. Don't start taking 100 questions in the beginning, you will be burnt out. Start slow and then build up on it. That's fine. Around 15 to 16 should be good, but just mindlessly taking without the analysis part is just useless, If it's a choice of, taking another mock test or doing an analysis of one paper, always go for analysis of one paper instead of taking another mock test. Oh yeah, definitely. So actually, the first mock interview that I took, like I said, I was preparing all from home, so I had no contact with anyone. The first mock text at all, first mock interview that I took was with Vishnu sir, and it was a big eye opener for me because I was completely laid back after means. I was chilling for 2 months doing nothing, and then I still remember the questions that sir asked me also. The first question was about some massacre called Sunduru massacre, which happened very close to my home, and I had no knowledge of that. It was a big massacre, which happened in the 90s. So sir asked that, and I was like, okay, what is this? And then he bombarded me with questions from economic survey, and I had no clue because I did not do economic survey again. So it was a big eye opener, and it sort of pivoted my preparation. Okay, these are my. Till then, I was sort of. I must admit, I was slightly on the like overconfident side. Like, achab, like. I can sort of handle the interview or a situation. But sir sort of brought me to the ground and pushed me into like, the right direction. So I think credit is due to him for that. See, the note making thing, I concur with what they've said. I don't think it's important to make notes out of current affairs. And also another metric that all of you need to function by is the return on investment, okay? Everything will have a return on investment. Imagine you're making notes out of newspaper every day. Maybe it will help you solve that one extra question in the prelims, okay? But it's not worth the return on your investment. You're spending good 1.5 hour every day for like good 2 years, and it's helping you get the 2 extra marks in the actual exam. Might as well invest it in getting that. If imagine you're getting 9 out of 10 questions in polity correct, might as well invest that time in getting 10 out of 10 questions in polity correct. So I would not recommend making notes of current affairs, but I also did this mistake, and I like to call it donkey work, which I very proudly own. For 5 months, I nicely like made 1.5 hour worth of time used to make notes out of newspaper, and after 5 months, it was just too much, and I never looked at it after that. And there are these people who are getting paid to make these magazines, so you can never be better than them. Trust one source. And the other stuff, this Nubra Valley question and all you asked, I think it just comes out of curiosity. Again, another mistake that I did in my first attempt was just completely stop reading newspaper before prelims. October was my prelims, and I sort of completely stopped looking at newspaper from September, and it went on until March. I did not look at it even during mains. I did not even look at it after mains. I only started looking at it during the interview. And I think that subconsciously costed me a lot in my interview. I didn't score well in my interview. I only scored 162. Because I realized I was playing slightly on the defensive side, because I was like, what if there was this information gap in the 6 months that I never looked at the newspaper? So take a look at the newspaper, keep yourself abreast of what's happening around, but don't excessively concentrate on newspaper also, like make notes out of every little thing that's there and all. Current affairs this thing, and also start taking current affairs specific tests. There are, I think every institute offers monthly current affairs tests, of June ka current affairs, July ka current affairs and all of that. So you can take those. But I think I personally feel given the trends from the last 1 or 2 years, I think it's more about the conceptual clarity and, your basic sense of understanding that they're really looking at than the current affairs themselves per se. So take your own call, but don't overdo current affairs, don't overdo newspapers is my suggestion. Firstly, I don't think marks are any metric to judge anyone's smartness. So I did my 10th and 12th in Tenali itself. I was in state board, and I had 10 on 10 GPA in my 10th standard. And inter I was in MEC. I had 975 in my 12th. And then I did my bachelor's in BA Honours Economics from Delhi University, St. Stephen's College. And I graduated in 2019. And I took the 2020 attempt. And currently I am pursuing my master's in sociology from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Yeah. That's there. But this might look very rosy on the screen, but it's a lot of trial and error and a lot of trials and tribulations. Nothing really comes in. You have to do your own sort of thing, and what is working for you, what is not. See, after February, there is no notes of newspaper. I am even bubbling. This is when I realized my donkey work and I stopped making the notes of newspaper. You will see the blanks in everywhere here. So, but before this I used to do it. So do your own, like take that risk, try it out, and then figure it out. And also I really don't think this thing of, your educational background has a say on what you're going to do in UPSC. I think nothing is further from truth than that, It has nothing to do with your, this thing. Sure, it might help you in terms of your contacts, your friends, the level of, atmosphere you grew up in, but that's about it. I think hard work, patience, consistency do go a long way than smart competitiveness or whatever your marks that you're thinking about in the academic career. So yeah, I think that's hopefully that addressed your question.
It was a great session. Thank you, Vijay. So some of the questions are there in here online. In Telugu, he want the answer to be in Telugu. So what he mentioned means, కొండ ఎక్కిన వాళ్ళకి ఈజీ అనిపిస్తుంది, కానీ కొండ ఎక్కని వాళ్ళకి కొండ ఎక్కాడే అనిపిస్తుందంట. సో మీరు ఫస్ట్ అటెంప్ట్లో యూ క్లియర్డ్ 682 ర్యాంక్ ఈజ్ ఎ వెరీ బిగ్ అచీవ్మెంట్. విత్ మై 15 years of experience, that's a good thing. Anyhow, you gave your attempt, you will be in top 100, that I know. So ఎలా ఫస్ట్ అటెంప్ట్లో క్రాక్ చేయాలి అని అంటే మన మనస్థితి ఎలా ఉండాలి, మన కమిట్మెంట్ ఎలా ఉండాలి, ఓవరాల్ మన పర్ఫార్మెన్స్ ఎలా ఉండాలి అనేది అతను తెలుగులో అడుగుతున్నాడు. కొంచెం తెలుగులో ఆన్సర్ చేయండి.
సో మొదటి విషయం ఏంటంటే, ఈ జర్నీ ఏదైతే ఉందో ఈ 1.5 years 2 years, ఇట్స్ నాట్ అన్ ఈజీ వన్. అంటే ఈజీగా అయిపోయిన ఇది కాదు. చాలాసార్లు నాకు కూడా చాలా లోగా ఫీల్ అవ్వటము. దేవర్ కొన్నిసార్లు మే అండ్ జూన్ ఆఫ్ 2020 ఐ డిడ్ నాట్ టచ్ బుక్స్ అట్ ఆల్ ఫర్ గుడ్ 2 months, బికాస్ అప్పుడు ఎందుకంటే నేను చాలా బ్యాడ్ పొజిషన్లో ఉన్నా ఇన్ టర్మ్స్ ఆఫ్ మెంటల్ హెల్త్. సో ఇట్స్ కామన్ ఫర్ ఎవ్రీ వన్. తెలుగులో ఒక సామెత ఉంది, దూరపు కొండలు నునుపు అని. సో మనకి అరే మనమే ఇలాంటి పొజిషన్లో ఉన్నాం, బ్యాడ్ పొజిషన్లో, ఎదుటి వాళ్ళు బాగా చదువుతున్నారు, దే హ్యావ్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్ గోయింగ్ గుడ్ ఫర్ దెమ్ సెల్స్, బట్ మనకి ఇట్లా ఉందని మనం విప్పులా సెల్స్ కిందకి ఇంకా. బట్ మనం రియలైజ్ అవ్వాల్సింది ఏంటి అంటే, ప్రతి ఒక్కళ్ళు వాళ్ళ యుద్ధాలు, వాళ్ళ బ్యాటిల్స్, దే ఆర్ ఫైటింగ్ విత్ దెమ్ సెల్స్. మనం చూడలేము అవంతే. సో యూ మస్ట్ గివ్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ దట్ క్రెడిట్, యూ మస్ట్ గివ్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ దట్ టైం ఇదంతా చేస్తున్నందుకు. అండ్ అనదర్ అడ్వైస్, థ్యాంక్స్ ఆ క్వశ్చన్ అడిగినందుకు. నేను యాక్చువల్గా అందరికీ చెప్పాలనుకున్నాను ఏంటి అంటే, ఈ మెంటల్ హెల్త్ ఏదైతే ఉందో అది చాలా చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఈ ఎగ్జామ్ విషయంలో. సామెత ఉంది, లైక్ సౌండ్ మైండ్ ఇన్ సౌండ్ మైండ్ ఇన్ సౌండ్ బాడీ అన్నట్టు. సో యువర్ ఫిజికల్ హెల్త్ అండ్ మెంటల్ హెల్త్ చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ అని నేను ఎగ్జామ్ వల్ల రియలైజ్ అయ్యాను. సో ఎప్పుడైతే మీరు రియలైజ్ అవుతారో యువర్ మెంటల్ హెల్త్ ఈజ్ నాట్ ఓకే అని, ఆల్వేస్ డోంట్ హెసిటేట్. ఎక్స్పర్ట్ అడ్వైస్ కానీ ఎవరో ఒకరితో మాట్లాడడానికి కానీ మీరు ఆలోచించొద్దు, ఎక్కువ సందేహించొద్దు. నేను ఒకసారి నాకు నవంబర్లో మెయిన్స్ టైంలో కంప్లీట్ బ్రేక్ డౌన్ అయిపోయాను, నేను అసలు చదవలేకపోయాను అనమాట. సో ఐ వెంట్ మా అమ్మ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళి ఐ స్పోక్ టు హర్ ఫర్ లైక్ గుడ్ 1 hour, ఏంటి నా మైండ్లో ఏమవుతుంది ఏంటి అని. దెన్ బిఫోర్ ఇంటర్వ్యూ అగైన్ ఇలాంటి సిచ్యువేషన్ వచ్చింది, ఇంకా వర్స్ సిచ్యువేషన్. సో ఐ సాట్ అ థెరపిస్ట్, ఐ కన్సల్టెడ్ ఎ థెరపిస్ట్. ఐ టుక్ 1 session. ఏంటి, వాట్ ఈస్ నా ప్రాబ్లం, ఏంటి, ఏం జరుగుతుంది, ఓకే ఐ హ్యావ్ దిస్ ఎక్స్ట్రీమ్లీ హై స్టాండర్డ్స్ ఫర్ మై సెల్ఫ్, అవి నేను మీట్ అవ్వలేకపోతున్నాను, విచ్ ఇస్ వై ఐ హ్యావ్ దిస్ కాన్స్టెంట్ అన్హ్యాపీనెస్ ఇన్ మై హెడ్ అని ఆమె చెప్పాక నేను రియలైజ్ అయ్యాను అనమాట. సో మీరు ఆ మెంటల్ హెల్త్కి ఏది హెల్ప్ అయితే అది, మీ పేరెంట్స్తో మాట్లాడటమో, థెరపిస్ట్ని కన్సల్ట్ చేయటమో, ఏదైనా చేసి మీ మెంటల్ హెల్త్ని ప్రాపర్ ఇదిలో ఉంచుకునేటట్టు చూడండి. అండ్ అగైన్ దిస్ థింగ్, నేను చేయగలను అని అనుకోవటం ఈస్ ద బిగ్గెస్ట్ థింగ్ ఇన్ ది బిగినింగ్. యు ఆర్ నాట్ వెరీ డిఫరెంట్ ఫ్రమ్ ఎనీవన్ ఎల్స్. ఇఫ్ అదర్స్, మిగిలిన వాళ్ళు చేయగలుగుతున్నారు అంటే మనం కూడా చేయగలము అని అనుకోవడమే సగం కొండెక్కేసినట్టు అయిపోతుంది. ఇంకా అక్కడి నుంచి మిగిలిన సగం కొండెక్కడం చాలా ఈజీ అవుతుంది, ఎందుకంటే మనకి సగం కొండెక్కేసామే అన్న కాన్ఫిడెన్స్ వస్తుంది కనుక. సో మనల్ని మనం నమ్ముకోవడం ఈజ్ ద మోస్ట్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ థింగ్ ఎట్ ద ఎండ్ ఆఫ్ ద డే అని నాకు.
ఈ 3 నెలలు ప్రిలిమ్స్ June 5th ఉంది. ఈ June 5th వరకు ఈ 3 months వాళ్ళ ప్రిపరేషన్ స్ట్రాటజీ ఎలా ఉంటే ప్రిలిమ్స్ క్లియర్ అవుతుంది. So how they have to prepare for this 3 months till June 5th?
ఇదే ఈ 3 months ఆర్ డూ ఆర్ డై అన్నట్టు, అంటే దే మేక్ యూ ఆర్ బ్రేక్ యూ అన్నట్టు ఈ 3 months. సో మీరు ప్రాపర్గా ఈ 3 monthsని యూటిలైజ్ చేసుకొని, టైమ్ ఈజ్ అ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఫ్యాక్టర్ ఇందులో. సో మాక్ టెస్ట్, ప్రాపర్ రివిజన్స్, అండ్ నేను చూపించిన చాలా షార్ట్ నోట్స్ నేను ఈ లాస్ట్ 3 months రివిజన్లో చేసుకున్నాను, ఫస్ట్ టైం చదివినప్పుడు చేసుకున్నాను కాదు. సో మీరు అనుకోవచ్చు, అరే నాకు ఇంకా టైం లేదు, ఈ అటెంప్ట్ వదిలేసుకుందాం, నెక్స్ట్ అటెంప్ట్లో చేసుకుందాం ఈ నోట్స్లని. బట్ ఈ నోట్స్లని నేను ఇన్ఫ్యాక్ట్ నేను మార్చ్లో స్టార్ట్ చేశాను చదవడం. మీకు యూఆర్ స్టిల్ ఇన్ ఫిబ్రవరి. నేను ఆప్షనల్ చాలా లేట్గా స్టార్ట్ చేయడం వల్ల నేను మార్చ్లో వచ్చాను 2 ప్రిలిమ్స్ రివిజన్స్ అనమాట. సో ఈ షార్ట్ నోట్స్ చేసుకోవడము, మార్క్స్ చేయటము, అండ్ ఒకటి నాకు బాగా హెల్ప్ అయింది, స్టేయింగ్ అవే ఫ్రమ్ సోషల్ మీడియా. I don't go to the extent of asking you to stay away from social media, but నా విషయంలో అది హెల్ప్ అయింది. ఇన్స్టాగ్రామ్, ఫేస్బుక్, ట్విట్టర్, వాట్సాప్, I removed everything. And I was a huge social person in college. So if I can do it, all of you can also do it. So అది ఈ 3 months ఈ రివిజన్, షార్ట్ నోట్స్, మాక్ టెస్ట్, స్టేయింగ్ అవే ఫ్రమ్ సోషల్ మీడియా ఆర్ ద 4 things that really help me అని అనుకుంటున్నాను సార్.
How many tests they have to attempt? means some students are telling that I will do 50 or 10. So what is your, with your experience, whether 30 or 20 or how many we have to do final comprehension?
సో ఐ థింక్ ఇది ఇండివిజువల్ టు ఇండివిజువల్కి మారుతూ ఉంటుంది ఎన్ని టెస్టులు తీసుకోవాలి అనేసి. నేను ఇందాక చెప్పినట్టు మీరు అనాలిసిస్ చేసుకొని మార్క్స్ ఎక్సెల్ షీట్ చూపించాను ఇందాక, అందులో అనాలిసిస్ చేసుకొని ఏ ఏరియాలో బాగా చేస్తున్నారు చేయట్లేదు, అలాగే అలాగే షార్ట్ నోట్స్ ఇలా చేసుకోండి. నాకు 15-16 సరిపోయినాయి ఫస్ట్ అటెంప్ట్లో. సెకండ్ అటెంప్ట్లో నేను ఓన్లీ 1 టెస్ట్ రాస్తున్నాను అనమాట, ఎందుకంటే నేను చెప్పినట్టు ఇందాక లాస్ట్లో డిసిషన్ తీసుకున్నా. బట్ స్టిల్ యాక్చువల్ నాకు ఇయర్ లాస్ట్ ఇయర్ కన్నా ఎక్కువ మార్క్స్ వస్తున్నాయి అనమాట క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేసుకున్నప్పుడు. సో మీ ఏ ఏరియాలో కాన్ఫిడెంట్గా ఉన్నారు, మీది మంచిగా అవుతుందా లేదా అని. బట్ మినిమమ్ ఐ రికమెండ్ 10 టెస్ట్, అంతకన్నా కిందకైతే లేదు. బట్ మినిమమ్ టేక్ 10 టెస్ట్. ఈ ఆపర్చునిటీ సార్ ఐ ఆల్సో వాంట్ టు ఎంఫసైజ్, డోంట్ టేక్ CSAT లైట్లీ. చాలామంది నా ఫ్రెండ్స్ ప్రిలిమ్స్ జిఎస్ పేపర్ 1లో 100-120 తెచ్చుకొని పేపర్ 2లో ఘోరంగా ఫెయిల్ అయ్యి పాపం వాళ్ళదంతా వెనక్కి వెళ్ళిపోయింది. సో రెస్పెక్ట్ ఇవ్వండి దానికి. అరే మేము మ్యాథ్స్ బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ నుంచి వచ్చాము, ఇంజనీరింగ్ బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ నుంచి వచ్చాము, చేయగలము అనుకోవద్దు. I also took around 6 to 7 proper CSAT tests in my first attempt. So Adi sir, minimum 10, ideally around 16 to 20. If you are still not doing good, revise and take about 25. But don't do madly వెళ్ళిపోయి 50-60 అలా ఊరికే చేసుకుని వెళ్తే ఉపయోగం ఏముండదు. సో అలాంటివి చేయొద్దు. సో
I remember it. We were been doing mock interview sessions, nearly 30-40 we did. 30-40 we did. Everyone were been with casuals, but only Vijay was been in a formal dress for just our 1-to-1 sessions, or for where we had a online COVID time. It was huge COVID time. It was every day 9 p.m. Every day 9 p.m. for 1 hour, nearly 30-40 days we did. So everyone were very informal. Vijay was very formal. Then I thought this person is going to crack. And we also had a discussion whether to write prelims this time or not. Last 1 week back.
Yeah, friends should go to him also. Apart from my parents, he was also like, right, they both and it's not for him. Now I thank my stars that I actually wrote that prelims. Ledante 2022 lo rasadi 23-24 daaka ellipoyedi. So thank you for that, sir.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you
so much, sir. I'm glad I got an opportunity to share my tiny bit of knowledge with all of you.